Greetings, Commanders! Today we are going over the Corsair. Now, the Corsair is going to be releasing in the store on the 8th. However, I want to kind of compare it to other ships. So let's go and unwrap our brand new gift. Corsair honestly looks really nice. So it's got a beak in the front. And if we move along the side here, it looks like where we're going to be getting inside is going to be directly underneath. Decent length wings on the sides. Now, one thing that I've seen people compare it to is like normal fighting and cargo hauling. However, the goal for today, we're actually going to do something completely different. I want to compare the Corsair against the original Python. The Python's actually really good when it comes to mining. This one has a decent amount of storage, so I'm really curious to see, like, could you actually build a Corsair for mining and it'll be better than the Python? Because so far I haven't actually seen too many people say that they would replace their daily ship with the Corsair. It's just a fun ship to fly. So I want to see what other uses that we can actually get out of it. For anyone curious, that is what the Corsair looks like. Alright, so the cockpit view-wise, looks like it's going to be a two-seater. We have our co-pilot able to sit directly behind us. Not actually able to move the camera around too much. It looks like we have some sort of door going to the back. And a nice little canopy overhead. So if you're going to get the pre-built one, it's going to come with 2 pulse lasers. It's going to have 3 class 2 points and 3 class 3 points. We have 4 utility slots. We have a 7 power plant, a 7 thruster, a 5 SCO drive, 4 life support, power distributor is 7, sensors is a 6. The optionals we have 3 class 6, 3 class 5, class 4, a class 3, class 2, and then 2 1. So we actually have a decent amount of stuff we can put on here. So now that we have our Corsair set up, let's see what we would do with our Python. And I want to compare the stats between the two. Currently, the Python sits at a 472 meters a second, which is decent. At the moment, we have everything set to size 2 mining lasers. This is a pre-engineered Python, so it's going to have some stuff engineered compared to others, but just bear with us. So we have some heat sinks. A lot of this stuff doesn't really matter when it comes to mining. Like, you don't need a grade A military composite hull, technically. The power plant being 7A, you could always downscale it if you're wanting to save on mass. Why would you want to do that? Well, the less you weigh, the further your jump range is. Which is why you'll notice on the Corsair, some of the components we have downscaled, where some we have at a normal rate. Thrusters, we have 6A. SEO, we have 5A. Life support, we have 4D. Power distributor is 7A, 6D, and 5C. Now for the optional internals. We have 3 different 6E cargo racks, which is going to give us a decent amount of storage. I always use the Guardian frameshift booster. And then we have 1 5A collector limpet, 2 size 3 collector limpets, a shield generator, a refinery, and a prospector limpet. This is important because we're comparing the Corsair to the Python, so I want to show the general build of the Python, and then the general build of the Corsair and compare the different stats that way. Build with the Python, we have 192 tons worth of storage, we have 7 collector limpets, and then we have 1 prospector. The reason why we have so many collector limpets is it makes it so much easier to collect while you're mining asteroids, that I just recommend this build highly. It is from one of our community members, Jasper. He made an awesome build for the Python. Alright, so let's check out the Corsair. Alright, so before we head into looking at the Corsair, we have 5 mining lasers for the Python. We have a top speed of 472 meters a second, and our jump range is going to be 40.23. Now we're going to have roughly identical builds compared to the Python and the Corsair to see which one is actually the new king. So when it comes to the mining lasers, we have 6 that we're able to use this time around, so it has 1 additional laser. We have head over to optional. We're going to have the exact same amount of storage in this setup. We have the same refinery, so nothing there is going to change. Our jump range is going to be a little bit less at 36.2 light years compared to 40.23. Our top speed hover is 577 meters a second compared to 472. So this one it's a little bit faster, a little bit worse jump range. Same amount of storage though. It has more lasers, so it's going to be able to crack the asteroids much faster. And that's probably the difference, honestly. So if you took one of your mining lasers off, that's going to be another 2 tons that you can remove. And also, if you're wanting to get things down even less, all you have to do is start engineering more for weight, and then you'll be in a better shape. Sorry, one slight tweak to the build. So we ended up dropping our Guardian frameshift booster now that we are inside the area to mine with a 5D collector limpet. You can go with 5A, they just didn't have any here at the location. That way we could bump our refinery up to 3A, which will grant us 2 more bin counts, but the main thing that's going to grant us is the detailed surface scanner, which we're going to need to locate our platinum. Before you take off, make sure you buy your limpets. I want to show the difference between how long it takes to crack an asteroid with the Python versus how long it takes to crack it with the Corsair to see which one we actually prefer. By the way, as first impressions go, this thing handles super nice and it feels super fun to fly. I'm definitely a big fan and I'll own multiple whenever it does come out in-game.
Surface scan complete.
Alright, so once you find your platinum hotspot, you are going to need your surface scanner to scan the rings. You'll notice there's going to be a whole bunch of orange circles pop up, which is why we needed to have this equipped, so we could actually see where we're supposed to be landing inside of the ring. It's going to be flying directly in the middle. There are overlapping hotspots, however, for today's example, we don't really care about it. Alright, so now that we're inside the belt, let's go inside our firing orders and start setting this up. So we can go ahead and get rid of the surface scanner. We don't need that for a while. So we have a couple different options here. We're going to want to have multiple mining lasers set to firing order 1. And then we're going to have to just play around with them and see which one's on the bottom. Alright, so it looks like they made it super easy, so the one on the lowest tier there, that's actually going to be the lowest one. Alright, so now that we've figured out which laser we're going to do, we're going to have it all set up in firing order A instead of having a split. So you want your collector limpet set up with your bottom mining laser. The reason why you want that is as soon as this bottom laser starts shooting, that's where a majority of your stuff is going to start falling from, which is going to allow your ship to collect it much quicker. Alright, so we're going to start with the most basic tutorial when it comes to mining. You want to have your bottom laser shooting last. Basically, that's going to allow it so your items are going to fall underneath. That's going to let your collector limpets grab them much quicker. You can match the rotation of the asteroids, that way you're able to scoop them up much quicker and move on to the next area. Let's go and turn the lights on so we can see a little bit better. Alright, so the goal here is to line yourself up as best you can. Get kind of close, that way your collector limpets don't have to go too far. The further they have to go, the more likely they are to crash into things and actually dump. So I'm going to start with your top lasers first, and then go to the bottom laser. Now this is with a somewhat engineered, but mostly stock Corsair, so you might expect a little bit of overheating. However, for this test, I wanted to compare it to the Python, roughly around the same specs, which is why we tried to keep it as minimal as possible. Alright, so 3, 2, 1. You have your collector limpet set to the bottom laser. Basically, while you're shooting, it's going to constantly sit there and shoot it, and put out new collectors whenever you need them. Wait for it. so with everything set up the way we have it, we are roughly 38.3 seconds to destroy it with 6 mining lasers, which actually isn't too bad. So we can get that gone, head over to our contacts, and like, for example, well, iron, we don't want to ignore it, but if you head over to the ignore thing, the collector limpet is just not going to pick it up anymore. So that's how you get rid of some of those other materials. That way it's not filling up your bay.
Expired.
There we go. And to ignore this. That way we're just not going to be gathering that. Now, one thing to keep in mind, another thing you can do to overcome your weapons overheating so often, we didn't have access to them in the testing environment, but we have pre-engineered mining lasers, which are going to be grade 1. They do a decent amount of damage, but the thing is, they don't overheat near as much, so having those offloaded on both the Corsair and the Python will allow your lasers to be able to shoot much more consistently without having to have the overheating issue. Also, if you upgrade your power distributor to set up more for weapons, that should allow it so it doesn't overheat as much. So that's another thing you can do to boost up the efficiency, especially when you're adding in more lasers. That's going to have a quicker overheating element to it.
Incoming message. Landing gear deployed.
Alright, so fun fact, even though it's set up different to where it kind of looks like we had more collector limpets, because the other ship has more optional internal slots, it's actually the exact same amount of collectors still. So these two ships are identical in every way except for their jump range, and the other one is faster and handles a little bit better. But let's go try the Python and see if we can find an asteroid of similar size to compare how long it takes to crack it with 5 lasers versus 4. I could have just turned one of the lasers off, but I didn't think that was a fair test. So we're going to have to see which is better, Team Eagle, Team Python. So the Python is going to be set up a little bit different when it comes to the firing orders. So you want to have your 3rd mining laser set to firing group 1. That's going to allow the bottom laser to shoot instead of having it on the very bottom like the Corsair has. The Corsair is a little bit more user-friendly when it comes to that. And let's begin.
Critical. Programming limpet drone. Prospector limpet engaged. Programming limpet drone. Asteroid scan complete. Prospector limpet failed. Prospector limpet engaged. Asteroid scan complete. Programming limpet drone. Asteroid depleted. Prospector limpet failed.
Oh, we actually have the prospector on our group, that's why. Alright, so it took a little bit longer, not too bad. So it was 38 versus 42. And obviously this one had a lot less overheating since we have a little bit less lasers. So if we had the pre-engineered size ones on the Corsair, I think it would be much more efficient. And same with if you get a better power distributor. But I wanted to try to keep these relatively on a fair playing field. Once it comes out to the public on the 8th, we'll be able to play around with it a little bit more and engineer it better to see how much better it is compared to a stock one. But with minimal engineering upgrades, the Corsair has a faster acceleration, the same storage, a little bit worse jump range, and much better handling. So I actually prefer the Corsair over the Python. You guys will have to let me know, which one do you like? Team Eagle? Team Python? But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.